Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Man. And welcome to Saturday's edition of the dceu Daily. Animation. They were debating animation within the Snyderverse before I went to bed, and they were still debating it when I woke up. I've never heard something so ridiculous in my life. What is the conversation to be had about that? Okay. Let's go back to this and let's talk about why everyone's pushing away from this. Well, not everyone, but the people maybe with a little bit of grey matter. Right, nobody is adverse to Zack Snyder and Jay Oliver doing some animated features and animated TV shows involving Snyderverse prequels like prequels to Man of Steel and even BVS and fun things like that. It would be awesome. We've said that before. We're not pushing back against that. We are pushing back against the hack journalist who did an article and then for some reason started talking about Batfleck in a paragraph, dismissing his return, then carrying on talking about animation and cartoons. The article had no logic, but the timing was very, very interesting. Now, as we already know, Jay Oliver and this hack, miserable excuse for a journalist, Mark Hughes, are good friends. Now, I don't know what it says about Jay Oliver being friends with someone like Mark Hughes, but there you go. Maybe he's really in real life like Mother Teresa and he's not the arrogant little so-and-so he seems to be when he writes his articles. Anyway, so for me, Mark Hughes did an article to get a friend a gig, right? Is that what it looked like to you, right? I love Jay Oliver. Jay Oliver's a great guy. He's very talented. I love the way he used to sit people down who used to attack Zack Snyder and the way he fought for Zack Snyder's Justice League, a.k.a. the Snyder Cut. He's a great guy. But at the end of the day, let's be honest here, why was that article even done? And now there's this big debate and there's people saying, you wait and see, you're all going to look stupid when all this is announced. Look, nobody cares. People just don't want animation replacing live action. And again, Hughes' article is so bad. And I mean, I covered this yesterday, but it is so bad at the end of the day because it just is wrong about so many things. Talking about how it doesn't take as long to do animation. Well, animation depends. If you're going to do a crappy piece of animation, you can do it within 5 minutes, within an hour. But if you're going to do CGI animation, which most people do now, that's a long job. And Hughes also said it was a cheap job. It's not a cheap job. Again, if you're going to do CGI animation, and I don't know what kind of animation they're going to do. I mean, we don't even know if this is happening. This is all talk. But you know what? I'm suspicious about the whole article. As I say, it's timing. And why did he mention Batfleck not coming back? It's like he knows it's what we want. And if we think we can't have it, we'll all go, yeah, let's give Jay Oliver this big job, man. And then the hack journalist gets his friend a job. Listen, I have nothing against Jay Oliver. And if he got this gig and this gig was happening, it would be amazing. I suspect we are going to get some animated Snyderverse features. And that's great. There's no problem with that. But I think people are so focused about this conversation, Jay Oliver, Zack Snyder, the Snyderverse. There's one thing you're all forgetting. Zack Snyder and Jay Oliver are not running anything. That's the point. DC Film, DC Animation, DC Everything is run by Jim Lee and Walter Hamada now. They're in charge, and Walter Hamada has been in charge ever since Aquaman. Yes, not Shazam, but Aquaman. Yes, that film was the way it was because of Walter Hamada, and you can all deny it as much as you want. But at the end of the day, those boys are in charge. Those boys are making the decisions. Now, they may have been the ones who pushed for the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League, or it may have been AT&T themselves. I personally think Jim Lee went to bat for Zack Snyder and persuaded AT&T and showed them and came up with this multiverse strategy. And I think this is where it all came from. So, we should be very grateful for Jim Lee. And Jim Lee isn't some arrogant bloke who goes on Twitter arguing with everyone and putting down fans. But the point is, I want you to start being understanding who's in charge here, who the kings are here, who the decision makers are here. Because Zack Snyder is obviously in charge of his own Justice League movie. No one's interfering this time. That's absolutely spot on. But there's a big plan here by Jim Lee and Walter Hamada. The multiverse strategy isn't one small thing. It isn't just about the Snyderverse. Yesterday I was tweeting, bring on the Snyderverse, bring on DC fandom, bring on the multiverse. And one fellow Snyderverse fan said, F the multiverse, it's all about the Snyderverse. Not for me. Not for me. I love DC. I love everything DC, even the bad DC stuff. I love DC, right? So it isn't just about the Snyderverse. Sorry, I'm not just here for Zack. I'm actually here for me and my passion for DC and other movies and other comics and other novels and lots of other stuff in entertainment, right? So no, I'm not here for Zack. Zack doesn't need me. Zack's a millionaire, a successful filmmaker. He needed us to fight for the Snyder Cut, and we did it for him, right? And that's great. But Zack Snyder's a millionaire. He doesn't need you to be there for him, right? He's a successful filmmaker. And now he's about to maybe give us or execute the greatest live-action comic book movie of all time. We can only hope what that film's going to be, because the truth is nobody really knows what that film's going to be. And I think ever since we saw that black suit scene, I think we're even more in the dark about what's going on with this film, because I don't think anyone expected to see that sequence. And subjective reviews has already suspected that we may not even see that scene. And in fact, that actually might be Green Lantern. Interesting, because that was the original suspicion that it would be Green Lantern. So there's a lot of arguments on Twitter right now about this animation situation. Don't get it twisted. If it happens, it'll be great. But here's the thing. What is an echo chamber? What are cultists? Because we hear that word bandied about towards our fellow Snyderverse fans, right? So why? I think people like me and you are great, because we have our opinions, we're passionate about Snyder's DC movies, but we allow each other to talk, to have a heated debate, a difference of opinion. I spoke about what happened with Davey Pina, the film junkie, yesterday, didn't I? As soon as I didn't stick with his narrative and his echo, what is an echo chamber? An echo chamber is something that listens out for something and someone that doesn't echo. And as soon as you don't echo their narrative, they're after you. And Davey Pina went after me yesterday, right? And he went after me viciously because I didn't agree with him. As soon as that Mark Hughes article came out, all the so-called elitists in this fandom support it. Jay Oliver, Zack Snyder, this is brilliant. Don't care. These are calls, and a lot of us on our side, the same people of the fandom, have said the same thing. Hang on a minute, did we fight for 2 years for cartoons? It's a great point. Do you remember those people who wanted to release the Snyder Cut comic book instead of the film? I suppose in a way they thought that was all that was possible at the time, and if that's all that's possible, it's better than nothing. But still, you know what we're trying to say here. And so, yeah. And then we go to the air cut. There's even some of these cultists suggesting that the air cut should be animated. You see what you're doing here? I love the people fighting for the air cut because they're not toxic, they're not elitists, and they're not cultists, right? Because I'm not part of a cult. I'm never going to say and do what you want me to. I'm going to have my own mind, my own opinions, and I'm going to speak the truth. And I'm trying to be a lot more frank with people, especially in this video, so you understand where I stand. So if you don't like where I stand, you can toggle off and go away. And you can follow the cultists, right? And we all know who the elitists and the cultists are. And I'm not going to list their names, because you know what? Some of the elitists and cultists I actually like. That's the tragedy here. That's the tragedy when you find out what people say on Twitter. For example, during the Justice Con upset, someone said this, and I can't remember who. Maybe I'll remember in the future. But right now, this is what they said. If you hate Justice Con, you hate Zack Snyder, or something along those lines. Now, I can understand there's not really any reason to hate Justice Con. Well, apart from the people running it maybe being a little bit elitist and a little bit toxic at times, and we know that. But I made the decision to support it anyway because I made it about the actual charity and the fandom and Zack rather than the toxic people who were running it, right? So there's that. So I agreed mostly with that statement. If you hate Justice Con, you hate Zack, or if you don't support Justice Con, you don't support Zack. But again, it's very elitist, isn't it? And I was thinking about the statement, and I was thinking, do you know what? That's not actually true. I can sit here all day binging Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. That's supporting Zack. That's loving what he did. That's all I have to do. I don't have to be part of some cult or fandom, do I? Of course not. I love Zack Snyder as a person and as a filmmaker, and I like his films. That doesn't mean I have to join some group of people, right? I think elements of this fandom are brilliant. The ones who realise they're not in a cult or an echo chamber, who are not elitists. So what can we do about these elitists and these cultists? It's time to forget them. It's time to unsubscribe from their YouTube channels. It's time to not follow them. Yes. It's time for us. Come with me. Come with me. Forget them. Follow. Let's stand in a circle together and jump up and down and smile and laugh and drink Chianti and smoke cigars and cigarettes and watch Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman and celebrate what we love instead of celebrating what we hate. Right? And if you have an opinion I don't agree with, that's fine. We don't have to bore on about it for 60 hours like they have this animation thing, right? We don't have to tell you, if you don't support animation, you don't support Zack Snyder. It's a blatant lie. It's intimidation of the lowest kind, and you know it, right? If you want animated Snyderverse, good for you. If you don't, good for you again. I think it's epic and awesome, and I think it'll be great. As long as we're still getting live action projects. And of course, we're going to get live action projects. And don't give up hope on the Batfleck straight to streaming series or movie just yet. Now, we know that Ben Affleck kind of distanced himself from the DCEU a few months back. We know that. So until we know anything else, we have to respect what the man last said about it. That's fine, right? But don't give up hope, because this is the entertainment industry. You see, fandoms are very difficult things. I'm a Doctor Who fan. I've been threatened in private DMs before by Doctor Who fans. It hasn't happened via the DCEU yet, but the night is still young. But don't worry, anything that happens, I will publicly talk about it and screenshots will be made. There's no intimidation here. But I believe when you are in a cultist, elitist kind of movement, that helped release a movie, by the way, so it had its uses. But you have to look at it, because that group of the fandom, ever since the movie has been announced, has got worse and worse and worse and worse. Will Rowling's warnings. We all know Will Rowling's actor. He was warning us about them for so long. And I didn't even believe him. But he was right. He's got his Twitter account locked now because they've hacked him, right? Yes, this is how deep it is. I didn't really realise what was going on within this fandom until I had that clash with Wonder Meg. And then with Davey Pina. Then I realised what was going on. For me personally, it's time to unsubscribe from them, move away from them, and love what I love. But I'll reiterate what I've already said. I love all of DC. It isn't just about the Snyderverse as much as I love the man's films. And Zack Snyder doesn't run DC. Jim Lee and Walter Hamada do. And you're going to find that out at DC Fandom. And a lot of you are going to look pretty dumb when DC Fandom is complete and you find out what Walter's and Jim's plans are for the entire DC movies and TV shows and animated universes. Oh yeah, it's a big plan, and it's about more than just the Snyderverse. I'm going to read out to you a thread I made yesterday about this Mark Hughes article. The Mark Hughes article was no different to what Andy Sigmore's article claiming the Snyder Cut wouldn't happen. We went from his strong stance that Ben wasn't returning to talking about cartoon DC, laughing emoji. The article is suspicious in its timing, as Sigmore's article was. You see, I always get suspicious when people who are supposed to be close to information jump in support of an article so aggressively, but the animated conversation is just background. His stance about Ben is the suspicious element of the article. You see, obviously Hughes and Jay are friends, so the animation element was a suggestion of getting a friend a good gig. But why so randomly an article about animated Snyderverse did he start talking about Ben's Batman? It's of course very suspicious, isn't it? And it is very suspicious. And I'll reiterate something else I said 2 days ago on Twitter. Mark Hughes doesn't run Warner Media, AT&T or HBO Max. Mark Hughes has no influence. Mark Hughes has had egg on his face so many times as a journalist. Like the prediction he made that the DCEU was going to get rebooted. And I proved him wrong. All I had to do was wait. Because has the DCEU been rebooted? No. Now, you could argue after DC Fandom, well, look what they're doing. I mean, look what's happened to the DCEU. Yes, we have to be honest about this. The DCEU is literally being put in a little corner somewhere, right? It's still going to be there. So what they're going to do is centrally, they're going to take aspects of the DCEU they like for the mainstream. So Wonder Woman and Aquaman are the elements that they like. I don't think they want Cavill's Superman as the mainstream Superman. And Ben Affleck's Batman, even if he comes back for HBO Max, he's never going to be the central Batman. Because Robert Pattinson is. We know that, right? So it's very clear that even though he was kind of not completely accurate about his assertion because of the flop of Justice League that DCEU will be rebooted, I suppose I have to apologise to Mark Hughes a little bit and say, do you know what, Mark? You're pretty much right. Because the mainstream DC live-action movies now will be Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and Shazam, of course. So there's a little bit from the DCEU. But we're going to get another Superman. That's obvious. We've got a brand new Batman. That's there for all to see. No one can deny that. They're going to bring in the Bat family. So the mainstream centralized these DC character movies are very different than what we started with Man of Steel. So there's a very smart reboot here where it's not a total reboot. We're not starting from scratch. But with the multiverse strategy, you can do a lot of smart things and change things. And we still don't know what's going on with Cavill's Superman. I personally don't think you will ever see a Cavill Superman movie in the cinema again if cinemas survive this pandemic, right? I don't think you will. I think you'll get a brand new Superman. A lot of people are not going to like hearing that. So in a way, they have taken the DCEU. They have disbanded it. They've said to Snyder, there's your sandpit. It's all yours. Don't bother us. Do your thing. That's fine. And we will build something centrally. And maybe in the future, maybe in 5 years, we can have a crisis on Infinite Earths and we can get all this together. And don't forget, the Flash movie is still very centralized. And of course, I'm predicting that Cyborg will team up with the Flash in the Flashpoint movie. Talking about the Flashpoint movie, the director Andres Muschietti has had something to say. Wait there. Basically, Andres Muschietti has been talking about The Flash, and I'm very excited about what he's had to say. And he's spoken a lot recently about this film, which I like. So this is from Screen Rant and Cooper Hood. Flash Movie's DC comic story confirmed by director. Ezra Miller's Solo, the Flash movie, is confirmed to keep important aspects of the Flashpoint DC comic story, according to director Andy Muschietti. Some people call him Andres Muschietti. I don't know anymore. Mate, tell me what your name is, anyway. Details on the Flash's story have been confirmed by the DC movies director. Ezra Miller joined the DC Extended Universe as Barry Allen, aka The Flash, many years ago, with his debuts coming in Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice the time. Warner Bros. Announced a solo film for Flash that was scheduled to be released in 2018, but it lost multiple directors and release dates instead. Now The Flash is finally making progress under the direction of Andy Muschietti. Now, Andy Muschietti was already working for New Line Cinema. I'm trying to prove a point here. New Line Cinema used to be run by Walter Hamada. Walter Hamada is co-running DC with Jim Lee. And his director he used to work with is now doing the Flash movie. So we all know who's running things right. We get it. We understand who the players are, because I think it's important, because when I go on Twitter, I think you're misunderstanding who's actually running these things. The director of It and It Chapter 2, both New Line Cinema movies, by the way, might seem like an unconventional choice for The Flash, given his horror background. But he's continued to tease what fans can expect from his DC blockbuster. Even before Muschietti was part of the film, multiple attempts to crack The Flash had it borrowing from the Flashpoint storyline. Muschietti has since confirmed his movie's adapting the iconic Flash comic story, but that it will also be different from the comics. This has left fans wondering how different The Flash will be, but Muschietti has confirmed some important details of Flashpoint will remain. He recently did an interview with Argentinian radio station Metro 95.1, and Twitter user Alden67 shared quotes of what he said online. The interview and the quotes were originally published in Spanish, but here's the translation of what he revealed regarding key Flashpoint story points staying in the movie. So let's give this a read. It's a story of time travel. Flash travels back to try to save his mother. It is a spectacular action movie, but it has a big heart. Have you noticed Andrus doesn't use the word fun or comedy? Very interesting, and I know that's very important to some people, so I just thought I'd mention that. For those who haven't read Jeff Johns' 2011 Flashpoint event, the basic premise is exactly the same as what Muschietti intends. The Flash to follow Barry Allen travels through time to stop Reverse Flash from killing his mom. But the world is drastically different when he returns to the present. Not that it should be surprising that Muschietti is keeping this set up for the Flash, but fans no longer need to wonder if that will be the case, depending on how the adaptation goes. The Flash can be the perfect origin story for Barry and set up the DCEU's future. Exactly. Muschietti might be following aspects of Flashpoint, but it has already been revealed how he's changing things. Michael Keaton will return as Batman for the time travel alternate reality story. The Flashpoint comic story sees Thomas Wayne become Batman, but the movie will change this approach by potentially having an alternate reality. Batman become part of the main timeline. This should immediately signal the repercussions of Barry's actions to the Scarlet Speedster, since he has significant interactions with Ben Affleck's Batman. Thanks to this mixture of inventiveness and sticking to the source material, The Flash is shaping up to be quite the exciting DC movie. It certainly is. And one of the exciting things which confirms there is we are going to see a live-action movie-verse Reverse Flash. Now, I know we've had a Reverse Flash in Arrowverse, and he's cool and he's awesome, but we're going to get one in this Flashpoint movie, and I can't wait, because Reverse Flash, if done properly, is a great character. Eobard Thawne started out as a big fan of the Flash, and it's his jealousy that leads him to kill Barry's mum, basically. So it's a very emotional story. Isn't it like Twitter, though? Think about the relationship between Eobard Thawne and Barry Allen, right? It's like me on Twitter, right? I admire actors and actresses and YouTubers, and all of a sudden I'm saying something that upsets them. We're arguing, and they block me, and I block them, and stuff like that. This is what this relationship's about. Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, originally idolizes Barry Allen, but then he becomes bitter and twisted and jealous over him. I'm not saying that's why I argue with people on Twitter, because I'm happy. I like me. Apart from what people say that I'm this, that, and the other, I actually like who I am, so I'm pretty cool with that. But it's a great example. It is Twitter. It is hero worship. And I just thought I'd mention that. But yes, I am so excited for Andy Muschietti's Flashpoint movie. This is going to be awesome. And as I said a few weeks ago, I expect this to be rewritten too, because I don't expect Christina Hodgson's script to last, because I don't think she's part of New Line Cinema or Warner Brothers any longer. boys and girls were arguing about cartoons and animation, Ray Fisher was talking about important things, and this is what he had to say. I understand full well the personal and professional risks associated with my speaking out against the abhorrent behaviour of Joss Whedon and his enablers Jeff Johns and John Berg. I will not relent. This is good trouble, necessary trouble, accountability over entertainment. So every time this goes a bit quiet, he has to remind us, obviously, that he's still fighting for this. All I want to say is what I've reiterated before. This is AT&T and Warner Media. They're behind this. They started this, not Ray Fisher. So when he says, I may risk my career, no, you won't. You're going to be announced for the Flashpoint movie very soon, my son, probably in DC fandom. So we all know that you're not risking your career, but what you're doing is a very, very brave thing. And I respect you because, you know, this is the kind of thing that echoes down in Hollywood. But yeah, because he may get his Flashpoint movie, but if people see he's a bit of a troublemaker, they may hesitate in giving him work, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Look, he is brave to be doing this. I believe that AT&T did a very smart thing. They approached him and said, look, we know, we've investigated, we know what happened on Justice League. Look what they're doing. I've mentioned this past couple of times on the DCEU Daily. What's her name? Ellen DeGranis, right? Her show. There was bullying and stuff going on that show. That they found that out because AT&T have been investigating all their properties and all their programs and all their movies and their sets since they arrived. They're a very professional, they've got it up here company. And I think they approached Ray Fisher and said, listen, we know what happened, but we need a spokesman, we need a spokesperson. And I think it does help that Ray's a person of colour, and I think they wanted to send a message to the company as a whole. Everyone, it's not going to be the little setup it was before. We will not tolerate what happened on the Justice League set. We will not tolerate what happened to Clayne Crawford on the Lethal Weapon set for 2 seasons until you set him up and you just threw him out and then the show was cancelled because he was the show, which we all know now, which all the fans already knew, right? So I think AT&T are a very smart company, and I think this is why Ray is kind of the face of this. But I respect Ray for doing it and accepting the challenge, and it's absolutely fantastic. I want you all to comment down below, like, share, and subscribe, and I can assure you not only that I will be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily, I won't be animated, and I won't be a cartoon. See you again soon.